a periodic seasonal wind that comes from sea to land in a particular season and completely reverses back with the change in the atmospheric conditions in the next season. It is a typical yet dominant feature of the Indian climate. The term monsoon is derived from an Arabic word mausim, which means season. In olden days, the sailors found this wind convenient to set in their sails on the direction of the wind. They used to save their fuel and time by doing so.
Now, monsoons refer to the tropical and subtropical seasonal reversal in the both surface winds and is associated with precipitation caused by differential heating between continental scale landmass and the adjacent ocean body or the water body. Now there are basically the land and sea breeze only on the large scale. So let's start from the direct falling of the sun in the month of March, meaning that the sun rays are falling directly at 0 degree, that is equator, on 21st March. And the winds which blow between Tropic of Cancer and equator are the northeast trade winds, and the winds blowing between equator and Tropic of Capricorn, they are known as southeast trade winds. Now winds are not, the direction of the wind is not taken from the arrow but from the point from where they blow. So in both the cases you will see that they are blowing from northeast in the northern hemisphere and southeast in the southern hemisphere. At this time we have equinox, that is on 21st March. The sun rays fall directly at the equator. Then comes the month of April, you can say, that these northeast trade winds, they are still blowing in the respective areas. There is a seasonal shift of the sun's migration towards the north, and there is a movement of the winds also with the migration of the sun towards the north. As you can see the arrow, they have come closer to the equator. The southeast trade winds, they have come closer to the equator. And hence, in the other month, you will see a difference in the direction of the wind. Now the southeast trade winds at this time, they cross the equator and they change the direction into southwest due to Coriolis effect and an intense heating of land, creating an intense low pressure area. So what happens in the month of May? The sun rays may be falling at 20 degrees north latitude, and at this time the heat in the northern hemisphere is very intense, and therefore the heat over the land also becomes very intense, very high, and creates a low pressure belt and attracts the southeast monsoon winds from the southern hemisphere. So these southeast trade winds, they cross the equator, and as soon as they cross, they change their direction to southwest because of the Coriolis effect. Now what is Coriolis effect? They are the circular movement of the winds in different directions in the northern and southern hemisphere, which tends the winds to blow in the right direction in the northern hemisphere and in the left direction in the southern hemisphere. So the migration of the sun, you can see the arrow is made near 0 degrees equator, which is pointed towards the north. That means the sun is migrating now towards further north. Now we have crossed the month of May. The winds have already, the southeast trade winds have already crossed the equator, and because of the Coriolis effect, there is a total reversal of the wind system. So when you look at the point from where the wind is blowing in the northern hemisphere, that becomes southwest. The point from where it is turning, that point is southwest, and therefore there is a total reversal of the wind system. Now this happens because the intense heat is created over the land, and the low pressure is so intense that it pulls the winds, the southeast trade winds of the southern hemispheres, and they cross the equator, they turn their direction into southwest, so they blow over the water body like Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean, Bay of Bengal, and then they reach the land. When they reach the land, since they are moisture laden, they give rainfall to the different areas in India. Now here this is the equator which is marked in this map, as well as the Tropic of Cancer. Now the area between equator and Tropic of Cancer is known as the torrid zone. Here the direct rays of the sun fall. Once when it journeys towards Tropic of Cancer, that means it has a northward movement, and once it reaches Tropic of Cancer, then it starts to move again back towards Tropic of Capricorn. That becomes the southward movement. So these winds which blow along with the migration of the sun, they have a lot of impact on the monsoons of India. Now in the month of March and April, India has northeast monsoon winds blowing, as the northeast trade winds blowing. It is coming towards the equator. The southeast trade winds also are blowing. It is coming towards the equator. There is a convergence on the equator which takes place of these two winds. So this is between March and April. There is no change in the direction taking place. Now the temperature starts over the land, it starts to rise, and comparatively the sea is cooler when compared with the land. So therefore they are not so intense at this time that they will attract the winds from the water bodies all around. But in the month of May, the southeast monsoons, they cross the equator and then come towards the land, or towards the northern hemisphere, and hence they are attracted towards the land, because an intense low pressure is created over the land, high pressure is created over the water body, and you know that the wind always moves from high pressure to the low pressure. Now since these winds are moisture laden, wherever they find an obstruction, they will give wind to the windward side of the mountains. And this is how the monsoons of India gets rain, because of the total reversal of the wind system. Then by the month of October, November, December, there is again a change in the direction of the wind, which we will discuss later. But till here I think it should be clear. So what are the two reasons due to which there is a change in the direction of the wind? One is the Coriolis effect, that the winds, when they cross the equator, they are diverted towards the right in the northern hemisphere and towards the left in the southern hemisphere. Secondly, because of the intense low pressure created over the land because of very high temperature, these winds, moisture laden winds, are attracted towards the land because a high pressure is prevailing over the water body. And by 21st June, the sun rays fall directly at the Tropic of Cancer. So at this time, you will find that rainfall starts to happen in most of the part of India. Sometimes they are evenly distributed, sometimes unevenly distributed, sometimes they come early, sometimes they come late. So it's unpredictable, and then their total reversal of the wind system takes place. Then there has to be a barrier for these winds to give rainfall, which is known as the relief rainfall. So these kind of these, you can say, are the features also of the monsoons, which again we will do it later. But I think if you have any doubts regarding the direction of the wind, how they change, how the direction changes, then you may ask. But basically this is the main reason why we get monsoons in India. After the reversal of the wind from northeast trade winds to southwest monsoons in the northern hemisphere starts the season of monsoons, and it is known as southwest monsoons because it is actually the southeast trade winds which, when they come in the northern hemisphere, they get diverted towards the right and get the direction of southwest monsoons. Now all the places do not receive rain at the same time because in India the rainfall received is mainly of relief type, and in relief type of rainfall means that the mountains play an important role as far as the rainfall is concerned. The amount of rainfall also varies from place to place because of the same reason, and the rainfall received is of relief type. Now the onset of monsoon starts in India at about on the date 1st June. First, the state to receive rainfall is Kerala, then it proceeds towards the north and it gives rainfall to the whole of Malabar coast. Further north, it gives rainfall to the Kannada coast and covers the state of Karnataka. Then further it goes towards Maharashtra, and there also it gives rainfall to the uh, coastal areas of Maharashtra, and by 10th June it hits Mumbai. By 15th June it reaches Ahmedabad and Bhopal, and by 1st July it comes to UP, Haryana, Eastern Punjab and Himachal Pradesh, though the rainfall received in these states are very little. By 15th of July, the whole country comes under the monsoons, and each and every place receives rainfall in that by this time. Now the above dates, they are not fixed, as monsoons in India are highly unpredictable, and it is based on the previous observation or observation done for about 30 years, and on an average these are the dates where on which the rainfall is received in the respective areas. Here in the map you can see that the states of Kerala and the coastal area of Karnataka and the coastal area of Maharashtra, that is the Konkan, Kannada and the Malabar coast. These coasts receives very heavy rainfall. They receive heavy rainfall because they are falling towards the west of the Western Ghats, that is the windward side of the Western Ghats. So the moisture-laden winds, when they come from the Arabian Sea, they are obstructed by the Western Ghats, and therefore these areas receives very heavy rainfall above 200 centimeters. Then the other states are the northeastern states. They receive rainfall not because of the Arabian Sea branch but because of the Bay of Bengal branch. And the main mountains or the hills which obstruct the moisture-laden winds, first of all it is the Arakan Yoma mountain in Myanmar, then the Garo Khasi and Jaintia hills which lie in the state of Assam, Meghalaya, and Mausimram and Cherrapunji hence receives the heaviest rainfall in the world. Arunachal Pradesh also receives rainfall because of these mountains, and also mainly because of the Himalayas, which act as an obstruction and gives rainfall to the area. Now, because of the tapering shape of India, that is the triangular shape, it becomes narrower towards the south. The monsoons in India, they are divided into two branches, that is Arabian Sea branch and the Bay of Bengal branch. Right now, we will first discuss the Arabian Sea branch. You can see in this diagram that the moist air is rising, that is when the moisture laden winds come from the Arabian Sea, they are obstructed by the mountain, and the wind is moist because they have crossed a water body, and therefore they have a lot of vapor when it rises condensation takes place and results into precipitation. Precipitation will always happen in the windward side, that is the side from where the air is ascending up. Now when the air gives rainfall to the windward side, it comes to the other side of the mountain. That other side is known as the rain shadow area or the leeward side of the mountain. Here the winds become dry because they have already shed the moisture in the windward side of the mountain, and therefore they become dry and do not give much rainfall to the leeward side of the mountains. Now the western Ghats, you can see in the map the direction of southwest monsoons also, which is obstructed by the western Ghats, and therefore the coastal areas receive rainfall. The first place or the state to receive rainfall is Kerala, and from here only the rainfall proceeds or the monsoon proceeds towards the northern part of the country. Because there is an obstruction, so therefore it does not reach the interior part of the country. Instead, the Arabian Sea branch of the southwest monsoons, they give rainfall to the windward side of the western Ghats only. Now some of the winds, you can see that they are proceeding further north, they are crossing Aravalli hills. Now these Aravalli hills, they are of low height and therefore they are known as hills also, and they are parallel to the direction of the southwest monsoons, and hence they do not give any rainfall to the states of Rajasthan and the northern part of Gujarat. They pass by without giving any rainfall. And some of the winds which proceed towards Punjab, Haryana and western part of Uttar Pradesh, they give little rainfall only to the states. The southwest monsoons gives less rainfall to these states. Now because of this Aravalli hills only, the Thar deserts were formed. Because here, first of all, it is a desert, so the area of intense heat, so the moisture laden winds, when they enter this part or this area, they do not saturate, evaporation continues, and hence no condensation takes place and do not give any rainfall. Hence no rainfall occurs in this region. And secondly, because of the parallel direction of the Aravalli Hills. So there are two reasons why the Thar Desert is formed. One, because of the parallel Aravalli Hills, and secondly, the air does not get saturated in this region. Instead, continuous evaporation goes on. Then the Deccan Plateau, you can see in the map, which becomes the rain shadow area. Windward side is the western part of the Western Ghats, leeward side is the eastern part of the Western Ghats, and the leeward side is mainly of the Deccan Plateau. This area is also known as the rain shadow region. So all the states which fall under this plateau region, they receive very little rainfall, and by the time these dry winds reach the eastern coast, they do not give any rainfall. Therefore the eastern coast is almost dry. They get rainfall, but not because of the southwest monsoons coming from the Arabian Sea. They get rainfall from some other reason, which we will do later. Now the Arabian Sea branch gives very little rainfall to Rajasthan because of two reasons I have already explained, but just to recapitulate, because of the parallel alignment of the southwest monsoons with the Aravalli Hill, and the wind do not saturate as the heat in the desert increases and their capacity to hold moisture also increases. Therefore no saturation takes place and these areas do not give any rainfall to the adjoining areas. Thus they reach the Shivalik without shedding their moisture.